Stop the wedding. He cannot marry her. She is a cheater and a liar. My sister Bella screamed those words from the back of the aisle wearing a white lace floor-length gown that looked suspiciously like a wedding dress. The entire congregation gasped. Then my mother ran up the aisle not to silence her but to hug her. She turned to me, raised her hand and slapped me across the face in front of 300 guests. "Cancel the wedding," my father crowed. "Give the ring back, you disgrace." I stood there, cheek stinging, world spinning, thinking my life was over. I had no idea that my fiancé Grant was about to turn this nightmare into the most satisfying moment of my life. My name is Paige, and at 32 years old, I stood at the altar of the historic Ocean Cliff Hotel in Newport, Rhode Island, living what was supposed to be the best day of my life. I am a landscape architect who built my own firm from the ground up, and today I was marrying Grant, a 35-year-old venture capitalist, who was the kindest, most brilliant man I had ever known. The ocean breeze was perfect. The $12,000 Vera Wang dress I had paid for myself fit like a glove. The 300 guests, a mix of Grant's business partners and my extended family, were silent, waiting for us to exchange vows. The air was filled with the scent of salty sea and expensive hydrangeas. It was perfect. Until the double doors at the back of the ceremony space slammed open with a violence that made half the guests jump in their seats. There she was, Bella, my 29-year-old sister, the golden child, the influencer with 50,000 bot followers and a mountain of credit card debt. And she was wearing white, not a cream cocktail dress but a full white lace gown with a train. She stood framed in the doorway, chest-heaving, tears streaming down her face with practiced cinematic perfection. "Stop!" she shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at me. "You cannot marry her, Grant. She is lying to you. She has been lying to you this whole time." The organist stopped playing. The officiant froze. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd like a wave. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at Grant, whose jaw had tightened, his eyes locked on my sister. "Bella, what are you doing?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "I am saving him from you!" Bella shouted, marching down the aisle. Her heels clicked loudly on the stone floor. She held her phone up high, the screen glowing. "I saw her last night. I saw her at the Marriott downtown. She was with her ex-boyfriend. I have the pictures, Grant. I saw them go into the room together. She is just using you for your money. She does not love you. She is a cheater." The accusation hung in the salty air, toxic and heavy. Cheater. The one thing I knew Grant, a man who valued loyalty above all else, would never forgive. The guests were standing now, craning their necks. I saw phones coming out. People were recording. This was not just a disruption. This was a public execution of my character. Bella reached the front row. She thrust her phone toward Grant's parents, who looked horrified. "Look!" she sobbed, swiping through images. "That is Paige. That is her entering the hotel room. Look at the timestamp. Midnight, just 12 hours ago." I stared at the phone. The photos were blurry, grainy shots of a woman with blonde hair like mine, taken from a distance, entering a hotel room with a man. It was clearly Photoshop, or just a stranger who looked vaguely like me, but in the chaos of the moment, to the shocked audience, it looked damning. "It is not me," I said, my voice rising. "Grant, you know I was with you until 10, and then I was at the bridal suite with my bridesmaids." "Liar," Bella screamed, her voice cracking with fake emotion. "I saw you. I followed you because I knew something was wrong. I could not let you ruin Grant's life like this. I expected my parents to step in. I expected them to grab Bella, to apologize, to drag her out of the ceremony for making a scene." I looked at my mother, Cynthia, sitting in the front row in her mother of the bride dress that I had paid $5,000 for. I looked at my father, Gerald, sitting beside her. "Help me," I pleaded with my eyes. But my mother did not look at me. She looked at Bella. She let out a wail of despair, stood up and rushed toward my sister. But she did not grab Bella to stop her. She grabbed her to comfort her. Oh, my poor baby, Mom cried, wrapping her arms around Bella. You poor thing. You have been carrying this secret all alone. You were trying to protect us, weren't you? I felt like the ground had opened up and swallowed me. My mother was comforting the person destroying my wedding. Mom, what are you doing? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She is lying. She is wearing a wedding dress to my wedding. My mother spun around, her face twisted in a snarl I had seen 1,000 times growing up, but never this publicly. She marched up the 3 steps to the altar. Before I could react, before Grant could step between us, she pulled her hand back and slapped me across the face. The sound was like a gunshot. My cheek burned instantly. The crowd gasped in unison, a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen out of the seaside tent. How dare you? Mom hissed, her eyes blazing with malice. How dare you hurt your sister like this? How dare you make her be the one to expose your filth? We raised you better than this. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us, by shaming us in front of all these important people, by cheating on a good man. I touched my cheek, stunned. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and stinging. I looked at my father. Surely he would stop this. Surely he would see reason. Gerald stood up slowly. He adjusted his suit jacket, his face purple with rage. He did not look at me with love. He looked at me with the same contempt he had shown when I chose architecture over marrying a rich man straight out of college. This wedding is over, Dad announced, his voice booming. He turned to the guests. I apologize to everyone. We had no idea our daughter was capable of such deceit. We are mortified. Then he turned to me, pointing a shaking finger at my face. You are a disgrace, Paige. You have always been jealous of Bella. You have always been jealous of her spirit and her beauty. So you act out. You try to sabotage everything. But this time you have gone too far. Give the ring back. What I choked out. Give Grant the ring back, Dad demanded. You do not deserve it. You do not deserve him. And do not think you are coming back to our house. You are cut off. I will not have a cheater in my family. The betrayal was absolute. It was a physical weight crushing my chest. My own parents. The people who were supposed to walk me down the aisle, who were supposed to be happy for me. They had taken Bella's word, a word, based on blurry photos and histrionics, over mine, without a second of hesitation. They had sided with the golden child just like they always did. Just like when we were kids and Bella broke the antique vase and blamed me. Just like when Bella crashed my car and said I was driving. I looked out at the sea of faces. 300 people, Grant's business partners, his wealthy investors, my colleagues. They were all staring at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. I was the bride who cheated. I was the woman who broke a good man's heart. My reputation, my dignity, everything I had built was being dismantled in seconds by my sister's lies and my parents' cruelty. I felt Grant's hand release mine. My heart stopped. This was it. He believed them. Why wouldn't he? My own mother had just slapped me. My father had just denounced me. If my own blood didn't trust me, why would he? I prepared myself for him to walk away. I prepared myself to run, to flee this altar, and never look back. But Grant did not walk away. He took a step forward, placing himself between me and my family. He reached out and took the microphone from the stunned officiant's hand. The feedback squealed for a second, silencing the murmurs of the crowd. Grant looked at Bella, who was currently sobbing into my mother's shoulder, looking up at him with teary, hopeful eyes. He looked at my father, who was standing with his arms crossed, radiating self-righteous anger. He looked at my mother, whose hand was still raised as if she might strike me again. Then he looked at me. His expression was unreadable. His face was stone cold. He reached out and took my hand again, lacing his fingers through mine. He squeezed so hard it almost hurt. Thank you, Bella, Grant said. His voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. It boomed through the speakers, reaching every corner of the venue. Thank you for that performance. And thank you, Cynthia and Gerald, for showing everyone exactly who you are. Bella stopped crying instantly. She blinked, confused. Grant, I am trying to help you, she stammered. She cheated. I have proof. Grant laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. No, you don't. Because Paige was with me last night. We were in our suite from 8 p.m. until this morning. We ordered room service. The staff can verify it. The security cameras in the hallway can verify it. So unless your photos show her teleporting, they are fake. The crowd erupted into whispers again. Bella's face went pale. My mother stepped back, looking uncertain, but Mom stammered. But Bella said she saw her. Bella would not lie about this. Grant ignored her. He turned to the guests. I apologize for the interruption, he said, his voice gaining an edge of steel. But before I have security remove these 3 people from the premises, there is something you all need to hear. You see, my future sister-in-law here claims she is trying to save me. She claims she wants what is best for me. But I think you should know the real reason she is standing here in a wedding dress. Grant reached into his tuxedo pocket and pulled out his phone. He plugged it into the aux cord that connected to the massive sound system usually reserved for the DJ. I recorded this conversation 48 hours ago, Grant announced. In my apartment. When Bella came over uninvited while Paige was at her final dress fitting. Bella's eyes went wide. Panic, raw and primal, flashed across her face. Grant, no, she pleaded. Don't. Grant hit play. The sound of static hissed through the speakers for a second, and then crystal clear Bella's voice filled the wedding venue. It was not the hysterical crying voice she had used moments ago. It was sultry, low, and manipulative. Come on, Grant, the recording played. You know you don't want to marry her. Paige is so boring. She is so vanilla. She works all the time. She doesn't know how to take care of a man like you. Then Grant's voice on the recording, sharp and angry. Bella, get off me. You are my fiancé's sister. What are you doing? I am doing what you want. Bella's voice purred. I know you look at me. I know you see the difference. I am hotter than her. I am younger. I can give you things she can't. Why settle for the copy when you can have the upgrade? Just cancel the wedding. Tell her you changed your mind. We can go to the Maldives together next week. I already looked up flights. Get out! Grant's voice shouted on the tape. Get out of my house before I throw you out. You will regret this. Bella's voice screamed on the recording, suddenly turning vicious. If you don't choose me, I will make sure you never marry her. I will ruin her. I will tell everyone she cheated. I will destroy this wedding. Grant hit the stop button. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier than the ocean air. 300 people stared at Bella. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. The image of the grieving protective sister had evaporated, replaced by the reality of a predatory, jealous woman who had tried to seduce her sister's fiancé and then framed her sister when she was rejected. Grant looked at my parents. They were frozen. My father's face had drained of all color. My mother looked like she was about to be sick. So Grant said, his voice slicing through the silence. You were saying something about a cheater, about a disgrace to the family. I looked at my sister. She was trembling. But I wasn't looking at her. I was looking past her to the back of the aisle where a man had just stood up. It was Dayon, Bella's husband, my brother-in-law. He was a quiet man, a CPA who worked long hours to support Bella's lifestyle. He was holding a thick manila envelope in his hand. And he was walking toward the altar. I have something to add, Dayon said, his voice shaking with rage. He walked right past my parents, right past Bella, and handed the envelope to Grant. Grant opened it. He pulled out a stack of papers. Bank statements. What is this? Grant asked. That, Dayon said, turning to face the crowd, is the $50,000 my wife stole from our joint retirement account 3 days ago. She told me she needed it to pay off a credit card debt she hid from me. But look at the charges. Grant held up the statement. One-way ticket to the Maldives, Grant read, first class, for 2 people. Grant Miller and Bella Davis. The crowd gasped again. This was the final nail. Not only had she tried to seduce him, she had used her husband's life savings to book a honeymoon for a man who didn't want her. Dayon looked at Bella, tears in his eyes. You stole our future to chase a fantasy. We are done, Bella. I filed for divorce this morning, and I am pressing charges for the theft. Bella let out a scream, a sound of pure frustration and rage. It is not fair, she yelled, stomping her foot like a child. Paige always gets everything. She gets the rich husband, she gets the perfect house, she gets the inheritance from Grandma. Why does she get everything? I stepped forward then. The sting on my cheek had faded, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I picked up the microphone from the stand where Grant had left it. Because I work for it, Bella, I said. And because I don't steal. I turned to my parents. They were shrinking away, trying to make themselves invisible. And you, I said to them, you knew, didn't you? My mother shook her head frantically. No, Paige, we didn't know. She tried to. Do not lie, I cut her off. I saw the text messages on Bella's phone when she showed the photos. The notification popped up. It was from you, Mom. It said, do it today. If we stop the wedding, we can get Grant to invest in Dad's company instead. The crowd turned on my parents. The disgust was palpable. They hadn't just believed the lie, they had wanted it to be true. They wanted the wedding to fail so they could manipulate Grant financially. They had sold out their own daughter for a potential investment. Grant signaled to the security team standing at the perimeter. Get them out, Grant ordered. All of them. Bella, Cynthia, Gerald. And keep them out. Security guards, large men in black suits, moved in. They grabbed Bella by the arms as she kicked and screamed. They ushered my parents, who were now trying to hide their faces from the cameras of the guests, toward the exit. You will regret this, my father shouted as he was dragged away. You need us. We are your family. I am not your family, I said into the microphone. Not anymore. I watched them disappear through the double doors. The same doors Bella had burst through only 20 minutes ago. The silence returned to the venue, but this time it wasn't tense. It was the silence of a storm that had finally passed. I looked at Grant. He looked tired, but he smiled at me. He reached out and touched my red cheek. Are you okay? He asked. I took a deep breath. The salt air filled my lungs. I looked at the empty aisle. I looked at Dion, who was sitting in the front row now, head in his hands, finally free of the woman who had used him. I looked at the guests who were now looking at me, not with pity, but with respect. I am ready, I said. And right there, without my parents, without my sister, with my cheeks still throbbing and the adrenaline still coursing through my veins, we turned back to the officiant. Please continue, Grant said. We got married. We said our vows. And when he kissed me, the applause was louder than the ocean. But the story didn't end at the altar. The fallout was just beginning. Because while my family thought they had just lost a wedding, they were about to find out they had lost so much more. You see, the inheritance Bella mentioned, the one from Grandma. She thought it was gone. She thought I had spent it. But she was wrong. I had kept it. All $2 million of it. And I had used a portion of it to buy something very specific, something my father needed desperately. I had bought the debt on his failing company. As I walked back down the aisle, married to the man I loved, I checked my phone. A text from my lawyer. Transfer complete. You are now the majority creditor for Miller Enterprises. You have the right to call in the loans immediately. I smiled. My honeymoon in the Maldives was waiting, and when I got back I had some business to attend to. My parents wanted an investment. They were about to get a foreclosure instead. This was not just a wedding, this was a war. And I had just won the first battle. 3 months earlier, the nightmare began at the Capitol Grill in downtown Providence. It was supposed to be our engagement dinner, a celebration of the life Grant and I were building together. We had reserved the private chef's table, a dimly lit alcove surrounded by walls of mahogany, and the scent of aged steak and old money. The bill was already guaranteed to be over $5,000 a tab. Grant had insisted on covering as a treat for my family. I remember sitting there gripping the stem of my water glass, watching the ice melt while we waited. And waited. 60 minutes. That was how late Bella was. My parents Cynthia and Gerald sat across from us making excuses for her as they devoured the appetizer tower. She is just busy, Mom said, dipping a lobster tail into butter. You know how demanding her career is. Career. Bella posted photos of avocado toast on Instagram and called herself a lifestyle consultant. She had not held a W-2 job in 4 years. When the double doors finally swung open, Bella made her entrance. She was not rushing, she was sauntering. She wore a red dress that was entirely too short for a family dinner and dragged her husband Dayon behind her like an unwanted accessory. Dayon looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes scanning the floor as if apologizing for his mere existence. He was a CPA, a man of numbers and logic, trapped in a marriage with a woman who treated math as a personal insult. Sorry we are late, Bella announced, not sounding sorry at all as she pulled out a chair. Dayon could not find his keys. I saw Dayon's jaw tighten, but he said nothing. He just sat down and reached for the water. Grant signaled the sommelier. We were just about to order the main course. Would you like to see the wine list? Bella did not even look at the menu. She waved her hand dismissively. Just bring us the Chateau Margaux, the 2015, and keep it coming. We are celebrating, aren't we? The sommelier hesitated, glancing at Grant. That bottle was $800. Grant didn't blink. He just nodded. That was Grant. Classy, generous, and completely enabling my sister's delusion that she was royalty. The dinner proceeded with the usual dynamic. My father bragged about a golf game he had lost. My mother criticized my hair, asking why I did not dye it lighter like Bella's. I took it all in silence, focusing on the filet mignon that tasted like ash in my mouth. I just wanted to get through the night without a scene. I should have known better. When the dessert menus arrived, Bella cleared her throat. The sound was sharp, theatrical. She placed her hands on the table, displaying a new diamond bracelet that I knew Dion could not afford. So she said, looking directly at me, "Since we are all here and since you two are so happy and flush with cash, I have a proposition." I felt Grant stiffen beside me. "A proposition?" I asked. Bella smiled. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. "Consider it a wedding gift. From you to me." I laughed nervously. "Usually the guests give the couple a gift, Bella." "Oh, stop being so traditional," she snapped. "Here is the thing. Dion and I have hit a little rough patch. Just a cash flow issue. Nothing serious. But I have this credit card bill that is being really annoying. Interest rates are criminal these days, honestly." She paused, taking a long sip of the $800 wine. "I need $25,000. The table went silent. Dion closed his eyes, looking like he wanted to vanish. $25,000, I repeated slowly. "Bella, that is not a rough patch. That is a car. It is mostly business expenses," she lied effortlessly. "Investing in my brand. Anyway, I know you have it. Grandma left you that inheritance. You have barely touched it. It is just sitting there doing nothing. Why should you hoard it all when your sister is struggling? The inheritance. The sore spot that had festered in our family for 5 years. My grandmother, a woman who saw through everyone's facade, had bypassed my parents and Bella, completely leaving her modest but significant estate entirely to me. She knew I would use it to build my firm. She knew they would blow it on vacations and appearances. "That money is for my business," I said, my voice hard. "It is not for paying off your shopping sprees." Bella's face crumpled instantly. The tears appeared on cue, welling up in her large doe eyes. "See?" She looked at our parents. "I told you she would be like this. She is so greedy. She sits on a pile of cash while her own sister drowns." My mother slammed her fork down. The noise echoed in the private room. "Paige, honestly, I raised you to be generous. Your sister is in need. She is in need because she buys designer bags she cannot afford," I shot back. Gerald pointed a steak knife at me. "Watch your tone. You are marrying a venture capitalist." He gestured at Grant. "This man deals in millions. $25,000 is a rounding error to him." Are you really going to let your sister suffer over pennies? I looked at Grant. His face was a mask of polite restraint, but I saw the fire in his eyes. He hated bullies, and he was watching three of them gang up on me. It is not about the amount, Grant said calmly. It is about the principle. Bella is an adult. If she has debt, she needs a payment plan, not a bailout. Bella turned on him, her eyes flashing. Oh, spare me the lecture, rich boy. You do not know what it is like to struggle. You and Paige are perfect for each other. You are both cold, heartless misers. Dayon spoke up, then his voice quiet. Bella, we can handle this. We can sell the car. We can budget. Shut up, Dion. Bella hissed, not even looking at him. You are the reason we are in this mess, because you refuse to ask for a raise. She turned back to me, her expression shifting from anger to a chilling entitlement. Look, Paige, you are the one getting the dream wedding. You are the one getting the perfect life. The universe owes me a little balance. If you do not pay off this card, you are basically saying you do not care if I go bankrupt. You are saying you want me to fail. I do not want you to fail, I said, feeling the familiar weight of guilt they always piled on me. I want you to be responsible. Responsible? Mom scoffed. She took a sip of wine. You are one to talk about responsibility. Hoarding your grandmother's money like a dragon while your family suffers. You know Grandma was senile when she signed that will. We could have contested it. We let you keep it out of kindness. And this is how you repay us, by refusing to help your sister when she is down. It was a lie. Grandma was sharp as a tack until the day she died. She left them nothing because she knew exactly who they were. But facts never mattered to my family. Only feelings. Only their wants. I am not paying it, I said, my voice shaking but firm. I am not paying your debt, Bella. Not a cent. Fine, Bella spat. She grabbed her purse and stood up. Then do not expect me to be happy for you. Do not expect me to pretend this wedding is anything other than a farce. You are a selfish, jealous witch, Paige. You always have been. She looked at the bottle of Chateau Margaux, which was still half full. She grabbed it by the neck. I am taking this, she announced, since you clearly owe me. She marched out of the restaurant, the expensive bottle swinging from her hand. Mom and Dad stood up immediately, throwing their napkins on the table. I hope you are happy, Dad sneered at me. You ruined family dinner. Over money. I thought I taught you better values. We need to go make sure Bella is okay, Mom said, glaring at me with pure disgust. She is fragile, Paige. If she does something desperate because of this stress, it is on your hands. They followed Bella out the door, leaving me, Grant, and Dion sitting in the wake of their hurricane. Dion looked at me. His eyes were filled with a profound, exhausted sadness. I am sorry, he whispered. She maxed out the cards while I was at work. I did not know until the collections agency called. Then leave her, Grant said. You are a CPA, Dion. You know the math. She is a sinking ship. I can't, Dion said, standing up slowly. Not yet. He walked out after them, a man marching to his own execution. Grant signaled for the check. He reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was warm, solid. That went well, he deadpanned. I looked at him, tears stinging my eyes. I am so sorry. They are impossible. They are predators, Grant corrected. And they are not going to stop. The waiter arrived with the bill. Grant opened the leather folder. I glanced at the total. $5,400, including the $800 bottle of wine my sister had just stolen. Grant handed over his black card without a word. She is going to make us pay for this, I whispered. She is not going to let this go. Grant signed the receipt with a sharp, aggressive stroke. Let her try, he said. We walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, the taste of expensive beef and bitter family drama lingering on my tongue. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought saying no to the money was the climax of the conflict. I did not know that Bella was just getting started. I did not know that the $25,000 was just the opening bid in a war she intended to win at any cost. 3 months later, standing at the altar with my cheeks stinging from my mother's slap, I realized I should have paid the debt. Not because she deserved it, but because it would have been cheaper than what she was doing to me now. But then as Grant's grip tightened on my hand, and he reached for the microphone, I realized something else. Paying her would have only delayed the inevitable. This moment, this public reckoning, had been coming for a lifetime. And as Grant prepared to play the recording that would end Bella's reign of terror, I took a deep breath and prepared to watch my family burn. 2 weeks after the disaster at the engagement dinner, I found myself standing on a pedestal in the private viewing suite of the Vera Wang showroom in Boston. For the first time in months, the knot of anxiety in my chest had loosened. The dress was a masterpiece of architectural silk and French lace strapless, with a corset bodice that made me feel like the version of myself I had always wanted to be. It cost $12,000. A fortune to most, a significant investment to me, but for this one day, for the life I was starting with Grant, I wanted perfection. The stylist, a poised woman named Clara, was fluffing the train, her eyes wide with professional approval. "You look breathtaking," she whispered. And for a fleeting second, looking at my reflection in the trifold mirror, I believed her. I felt powerful. I felt like a bride. Then the curtain to the dressing suite swept open and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. My mother Cynthia and my sister Bella walked in. They were 30 minutes late, of course. Bella was holding a large glass of red wine, a Cabernet she had insisted the assistant bring her because she claimed champagne gave her migraines. In a bridal salon filled with white silk and ivory tulle, the dark red liquid sloshing in her glass looked like a loaded weapon. "Well," Bella said, dropping her designer bag onto a pristine white velvet sofa. "It is a lot of dress, isn't it?" She circled the pedestal like a predator inspecting prey. She was wearing ripped jeans and a crop top, a deliberate contrast to the elegance of the room, yet she still managed to take up all the oxygen. "It is stunning," Mom said, but her tone was distracted. She was busy adjusting Bella's strap, fixing a strand of hair that was already perfect. "Though, Paige, are you sure about the neckline? It highlights your shoulders. Bella has such delicate shoulders, but yours are a bit athletic." I took a deep breath, refusing to let them ruin this. "I love the neckline, Mom. It makes me feel strong." "Strong?" Bella scoffed. She took a sip of wine, her eyes scanning me up and down with a mixture of jealousy and boredom. "You look like you are wearing a meringue. Honestly, Grant is used to models. Do you really think he wants to see you in something so stiff? I saw this slip dress online. Very 90s. Very Kate Moss. That would be better. It would hide your hips." Clara the stylist stiffened. She stepped in, trying to diffuse the tension. "Actually, this silhouette is very classic. It emphasizes the waist beautifully." Bella rolled her eyes. She walked closer to the pedestal, the wine glass tilting dangerously in her hand. She reached out to touch the fabric of the skirt. "I just think for $12,000 you should get something that actually fits. Look at this bunching here." "Please be careful," I said, taking a small step back. "Bella, that is red wine. Please do not stand so close to the dress." "Oh, relax," Bella snapped. "You are so uptight. This is why Grant is going to get bored of you. You act like everything is a crisis. I am just trying to help you not look ridiculous." She stepped closer, invading my personal space. She raised her hand ostensibly to point out a flaw in the bodice. I saw it happen in slow motion. Her eyes locked with mine. There was no stumble. There was no trip. There was just a flick of her wrist. A deliberate, calculated jerk of her hand. The glass tilted. A wave of dark crimson liquid arced through the air. It splashed across the bodice. It ran down the architectural silk folds. It pooled in the delicate French lace of the train. The white dress drank the red wine, turning a gruesome, violent shade of burgundy in an instant. The silence that followed was absolute. I looked down at my chest, at the ruin spreading across the fabric. I felt the cold wetness seep through to my skin. I looked up at Bella. Her hand was over her mouth, but her eyes were bright. She wasn't horrified. She was exhilarated. "Oops," Bella said. Her voice was flat, devoid of any real surprise. "You moved. You bumped into me." I did not move. I whispered, my voice trembling with a rage so intense it felt cold. I was standing perfectly still. "You threw it!" Cynthia gasped, rushing forward. Not to check on the dress, not to check on me, but to grab Bella's arm. "Bella, are you okay? Did it get on your shoes? Those are the new Louboutins." I stood there dripping red wine onto the pedestal, watching my mother check my sister's shoes, while I wore a ruined $12,000 gown. The stylist, Clara, had turned pale. She rushed forward with towels dabbing frantically at the silk, but we both knew it was hopeless. The stain was deep. The dress was destroyed. "This is ruined," Clara said, her professional demeanor cracking. "This is a sample. It is silk faille. This will not come out." I looked at my mother. "Mom, she threw wine on me. She ruined the dress." "Don't you dare," Mom snapped, turning on me with a ferocity that startled the stylist. "Do not you dare accuse your sister. It was an accident. I saw it. You shifted your weight and you bumped her arm. She is just trying to be involved. She is trying to help you." "Help me!" I shouted, the dam finally breaking. She brought red wine into a bridal salon and threw it on a white dress. "How is that helping? Lower your voice," Cynthia hissed. "You are embarrassing us. Look at Bella. She is shaking." Bella was indeed shaking, but not from fear. She was suppressing a laugh. She looked at me with wide, innocent eyes that held a glint of pure malice. "I am so sorry, Paige," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to fix the lace. You are always so clumsy, making people nervous. It is not my fault you made me jump." The manager of the salon appeared, drawn by the commotion. She took one look at the dress, at the wine pooling on the floor, and her face went hard. "I am afraid," the manager said, her voice icy, "that you will have to pay for this gown. The damage is irreparable. The full retail price is $12,000. I looked at Bella. "You need to pay for this," I said. "You did this. Pull out your card." Bella let out a high, incredulous laugh. "Me? I don't have $12,000. I am broke, remember? You are the one who refused to help me with my credit card debt. I can't pay for a dress I'm not even wearing." "Then, Mom," I said, turning to Cynthia, "you saw her do it. You pay for it." Cynthia looked affronted. "Paige, be reasonable. Bella doesn't have that kind of money. And frankly, this is your appointment. It is under your name. You are the one with the trust fund from your grandmother. You are the one marrying the venture capitalist. $12,000 is nothing to you. Just pay it and stop making a scene. It is not about the money," I said, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. "It is about accountability. She destroyed something I loved. She did it on purpose. And you are letting her get away with it. Again." "She did not do it on purpose," Mom shouted. "She is stressed. She has been going through a hard time with Dayon. She is fragile right now. Why do you always have to be the victim? Why can't you just be the big sister and handle it? You are so selfish, Paige, worrying about a dress when your sister is clearly upset." I looked at them. My mother flushed with indignation on behalf of the wrong daughter. My sister smirking behind her hand, knowing she was untouchable. They expected me to do what I always did: pull out my card, fix the mess, swallow the hurt, keep the peace. And I did. But not because I wanted peace, because I wanted evidence. "Fine," I said. My voice was calm again, dead calm. "I will pay for it." I stepped off the pedestal. The heavy wine-soaked silk dragged behind me like a bloody carcass. I walked to my purse, pulled out my black Amex, and handed it to the manager. "Charge it," I said. "And please add the cleaning fee for the rug. I want everything on the receipt." Bella clapped her hands together. "See, I knew you could handle it. You were just being dramatic. It is just a dress, Paige. You can get another one." Maybe pick something that actually suits you this time. I signed the receipt. $12,450. I folded the copy and placed it carefully in my wallet. We should go get lunch, Mom said, adjusting her pearls as if nothing had happened. All this excitement has made me hungry. There is a bistro down the street. My treat. To make up for your little accident. My little accident. I looked at the dress one last time hanging destroyed on the rack where the stylist had placed it. It was a casualty of war. I am not hungry, I said. I am going home. Oh, stop sulking, Bella said, linking her arm through Mom's. You are such a joy kill. Come on, Mom. Let her mope. I am starving. I watched them walk out of the salon. They didn't look back. They didn't care that I was standing there in my underwear having just spent a fortune on a pile of ruined fabric. They walked out laughing, already planning their next move, already rewriting the story to make me the villain who upset poor, fragile Bella. I turned to the manager. I am so sorry, I said. She looked at me with pity. Honey, she said softly. That wasn't an accident. I know, I replied. I took the receipt out of my wallet again. I looked at the date, the time, the amount. I took a picture of it with my phone. Then I opened the Notes app where I had started a list titled The Debt. I added the amount. Then I called Dion. Dion, I said when he answered, his voice hushed as if he was afraid to be heard. I need you to do something for me. I need you to find out exactly how much debt Bella really has. Not what she told us. The real number. Why, Dion asked. Because I said, staring at the red stain on the white floor. I am going to buy it. All of it. I walked out of the salon into the bright Boston sunlight. I didn't have a wedding dress anymore. But I had something better. I had a receipt, and in my family receipts were the only currency that mattered. Bella thought she had ruined my day. She didn't realize she had just handed me the weapon I would use to destroy her. This dress wasn't a loss. It was an investment. And I was going to make sure she paid it back with interest. 3 days after I buried the memory of my ruined wedding dress in the back of my closet, my phone buzzed with a text message that made my blood run cold. It was from Dayon. In the 5 years he had been married to my sister, Dayon had texted me exactly twice. Once to ask what kind of flowers my mother liked for Mother's Day, and once to tell me they were running late for Christmas dinner. This time the message was short, desperate, and terrifying. I need to see you. Alone. Please do not tell Bella. It is an emergency. I met him an hour later at a small, nondescript coffee shop on the outskirts of Boston, far away from the fashionable districts where Bella liked to be seen. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Dayon was a certified public accountant, a man who prided himself on precision and order. He was usually immaculate. His shirts pressed his tie perfectly knotted. But the man sitting in the back corner booth looked like he hadn't slept in a week. His tie was loose, his eyes were bloodshot, and his hands were shaking as he gripped a lukewarm cup of black coffee. He looked up when I approached, fear flashing in his eyes, as if he expected Bella to jump out from behind me. She does not know I am here, right? He asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. No, Dion, I said, sliding into the booth opposite him. I didn't tell anyone. What is going on? Is this about the credit card debt? Because I told you I am not paying it. Dion let out a dry, humorless laugh. I wish it was just the debt. The debt I can handle. I can work overtime. I can sell things. This is worse. He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. He hesitated for a second, his hand hovering over them, as if once he showed them to me there would be no going back. Then he slid them across the scratched table. I handle our finances, Dayon said, staring at his coffee. Bella hates numbers, so she never looks at the statements. She just swipes the cards. I was reviewing the transactions from the last month, trying to figure out how we got so deep in the hole so fast. And I found these. I looked down. It was a credit card statement heavily highlighted in yellow. Look at the merchants, Dion said, and look at the dates. I scanned the list. It wasn't the usual Bella spending, no generic department stores or trendy brunch spots. It was specific, targeted. La Perla, I read aloud. $500. Agent Provocateur. $600. Sephora. $400. I looked up at him confused. Okay, she is buying expensive lingerie and makeup. That is typical Bella behavior, Dion. She feels entitled to luxury. Keep reading, Dion pressed. Look at the notes I made next to the items. I looked closer. Next to a charge for a high-end men's boutique, Dion had written a note in red ink, Tom Ford, Oud Wood. My heart skipped a beat. That was Grant's cologne. It was his signature scent. He had worn it since the day we met. Why is she buying Grant's cologne? I asked, a sick feeling settling in my stomach. Is she buying a gift for him? Dion shook his head. She bought it for herself, Paige. She sprays it on her pillows. I walked into the guest room the other day, the one she's been sleeping in, because she says my snoring bothers her and it smelled exactly like Grant. And the lingerie? She bought it in your size. Not hers. Yours. I felt the room tilt. What are you saying? She is obsessed with him. Dion whispered, tears welling up in his eyes. It has gotten worse since the engagement party. She talks about him constantly, not in a normal way. She compares everything I do to him. Why can't you dress like Grant? Why can't you make money like Grant? Why can't you look at me the way Grant looks at Paige? He took a shaky breath. But it is not just comparison anymore. She is delusional. Last week I heard her on the phone with one of her friends. She was talking about the wedding. She said it wasn't going to happen. She said you weren't the right fit for him. She said she was going to save him. I slammed the paper down on the table. Save him from me. She thinks she is the main character. Paige, Dion said, his voice cracking. She thinks you stole her life. She thinks Grant was supposed to be hers. She has convinced herself that if she can just get him alone, if she can just show him how much better she is, he will leave you. That represents the spending. She is building an arsenal. She is buying the perfume he likes, the clothes she thinks he likes. She is preparing for a seduction. I sat back against the vinyl booth, feeling physically ill. My own sister was not just spending my inheritance, she was actively plotting to steal my fiancé. It wasn't just greed, it was a pathological need to take what was mine. She is dangerous, Dion said. I tried to confront her about the bills last night. I told her we were broke. Do you know what she said? She said it didn't matter. She said she was about to come into a lot of money. She said her ship was coming in. She means Grant, I realized. She thinks she is going to marry him and access his wealth. And yours? Dion added. She mentioned the inheritance again. She said Grandma made a mistake, and she was going to correct it. Paige, you need to be careful. She is desperate. She is drowning in debt. She hates her life with me, and she sees Grant as her lifeboat. She isn't just going to try to ruin the wedding. She is going to try to destroy your marriage before it even starts. I looked at my brother-in-law. He was a good man, a decent man who had been chewed up and spit out by the voracious appetite of my family. Why are you telling me this? I asked softly. Why not just leave her? Because I am afraid, Dion admitted. I am afraid of what she will do if I leave before I have a plan. And I felt like I owed you. I watched them gang up on you at that dinner. I watched them make you pay for everything. And I did nothing. I can't do nothing anymore. I can't let her do this to you. He reached across the table and pushed the stack of papers toward me. Keep these. This is the evidence of her spending. It proves she is unstable. It proves she is premeditating something. If she tries anything, use it. I took the papers. They felt heavy like a brick. Thank you, Dion. This changes everything. Watch your back, Dion said, standing up. He looked at his watch nervously. I have to go. If I am late getting home, she gets suspicious. She tracks my phone. He walked out of the coffee shop, head down, a man living in a prison built by his own wife. I stayed there for another 20 minutes, reading every line of the statement, absorbing the magnitude of Bella's delusion. She wasn't just a bratty sister. She was a threat. I drove straight to Grant's office. I didn't care that he was in a meeting. I walked past his assistant, marched into his glass-walled office, and threw the papers on his desk. Grant looked up surprised, then saw my face. He ended his call immediately. "Paige." "What is it?" "We have a problem," I said. "A big one. It is Bella." I told him everything. I told him about the perfume on the pillows. I told him about the lingerie. I told him about Dion's warning that she was planning to save him from me. Grant listened in silence. His face didn't show fear. It showed a cold, calculating fury. He picked up the credit card statement and looked at the charges for the cologne. He looked at the dates. "She is sick," Grant said, his voice low. "She is actually sick. She is going to try something," I said, pacing the room. "Dion said she is desperate. She thinks if she can get you alone, she can turn you." Grant stood up and walked around his desk. He took my hands in his. "She can't turn me. You know that, right? I would sooner jump off a bridge." "I know," I said. "But she doesn't know that. And she is going to cause a scene. She is going to try to humiliate us." Grant looked out the window at the Boston skyline. He was a venture capitalist. He dealt with risk for a living. He knew how to handle hostile takeovers. "If she wants to play games," Grant said, turning back to me, "we need to change the rules. We can't just avoid her. She will just escalate. We need to catch her." "Catch her?" I asked. "How she wants to get me alone," Grant said. "Fine. We will give her the opportunity, but we aren't going to let it be her word against mine. We are going to protect ourselves." He picked up his phone and dialed a number. "This is Grant," he said into the receiver. "I need a security team at my penthouse tonight. I want cameras everywhere. Living room, kitchen, hallway, hidden, high definition. And I want audio recording." He hung up and looked at me. "Dion gave us the warning. Now we are going to get the proof. If she tries to seduce me, if she tries to lie about it later, we will have it all in 4K resolution. We are going to bug the apartment page, and we are going to wait for her to make her move." I shivered. It felt invasive. It felt extreme. But then I remembered the red wine on my wedding dress. I remembered the smirk on Bella's face. I remembered my mother telling me it was an accident. "Do it," I said. "Let's trap her." Grant pulled me into a hug. "She thinks she is walking into a romance novel," he whispered into my hair. "But she is walking into a surveillance state. She wants to be the star of the show. Fine. We will give her an audience." We spent the rest of the afternoon coordinating with the security team. By the time we went to bed that night, our home was a fortress of hidden lenses and microphones. We were ready. We just had to wait for the shark to circle back. And we didn't have to wait long, because 48 hours before the wedding, just as Dion had predicted, my sister made her move. 48 hours. That was all the time left before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. The apartment was silent, but it was a loaded silence, the kind that hums with electricity before a storm. I was officially at a spa day with my bridesmaids, a cover story Grant and I had concocted to leave the penthouse empty except for him. In reality, I was sitting in a coffee shop around the corner, watching the live feed from the hidden cameras on my phone, my hands trembling around a paper cup. We knew she was coming. Dan had texted me that she had left their house dressed like she was going to a nightclub, not a casual drop-off for wedding favors. Grant sat on the leather sofa in our living room pretending to read a file. The camera angle was perfect. It captured the front door, the living area, and the kitchen island. At exactly 7 p.m., the buzzer rang. I watched on my screen as Grant stood up, walked to the intercom, and pressed the button. He did not say a word, just buzzed her in. When Bella walked through the door, I felt a wave of nausea so strong I almost dropped my phone. She was wearing a trench coat belted tightly at the waist and heels so high they clicked like ice picks against the hardwood floor. She was holding a small, insignificant box, the prop she needed to get in the door. Grant did not smile. He stood in the center of the room, his arms crossed, his posture rigid. You can put the box on the table, he said, his voice flat. Bella did not put the box down. Instead, she let it drop from her hand onto the floor with a careless thud. She looked at Grant, her eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. She was shaking. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. Grant, she whispered, her voice trembling. I did not know where else to go. I was so scared. She took a step toward him. Grant took a step back. What is wrong? He asked, though his face remained impassive. It is Dion, she sobbed. He is crazy. He has been drinking. He started screaming at me about money, about the credit cards. I tried to calm him down, but he raised his hand. I think he was going to hit me. I gasped in the coffee shop. Dion. The man who apologized to spiders before moving them outside. The man who was currently terrified of his own wife. It was a lie so vile it made my blood boil. She was using her husband's gentle nature against him, painting him as a monster to gain sympathy from the man she wanted to steal. Grant did not buy it for a second. I could see it in his eyes. But he played his part. You should call the police, Grant said coldly. If you are in danger, I will dial 911 right now. No, Bella shrieked, rushing forward to grab his arm. No police, please. I just need to be somewhere safe. I just need someone strong to hold me. I just need you. She clung to his bicep, pressing her body against his side. Grant tried to pull away, but she held on with a grip of iron. Bella let go. Grant said, his voice rising. You are safe here. Sit down. I will get you water. But do not touch me. She looked up at him, and the mask slipped. The terrified victim vanished, replaced by the predator I had seen at the bridal salon. She ran her hand up his arm, her fingers trailing over his shoulder. You are so tense, she purred. You have been working so hard on this wedding. And for what? For her. She reached for the belt of her trench coat. My heart stopped. I watched in horror as she undid the knot and let the coat slide off her shoulders. It pooled on the floor around her ankles. Underneath, she was wearing the lingerie. The black lace bodysuit I had seen on Dion's credit card statement. The one she had bought in my size but squeezed herself into. It was aggressive. It was desperate. It was obscene. She stood there in my living room half naked, staring at my fiancé with a hunger that turned my stomach. Do you see? She asked, stepping over the coat. Do you see what you are missing? Paige would never wear this for you. She is too prude. She is too busy with her little drawings and her plants. She does not know how to take care of a man like you. Bella, put your clothes on, Grant said. He was backing away now, putting the kitchen island between them. You are unwell. You need help. I am not sick, she hissed, stalking him around the granite counter. I am the only one who sees you. I bought your cologne, Grant. I spray it on my sheets because I cannot sleep without imagining you there. I bought this for you. I bought all of it for you. Why are you fighting this? You know we are better together. We are the same. We both want the best things in life. Paige is just... She is just the stepping stone. She lunged. It was the only word for it. She threw herself across the corner of the island, grabbing Grant by the lapels of his shirt. She tried to pull his face down to hers, her mouth open, desperate to mark him, to claim him. Grant reacted on instinct. He did not hit her, but he shoved her, hard. He pushed her away with enough force that she stumbled backward, her heels catching on the discarded trench coat. She fell to the floor in a tangle of limbs and black lace. Do not touch me, Grant roared. His voice was so loud it distorted the audio on my phone. You are disgusting. You are my fiancé's sister. You are a married woman, and you are a liar. Dion did not hit you. You are the abuser, Bella. You are the one destroying everyone around you. Bella sat up on the floor. She did not look ashamed. She looked furious. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared, and the illusion of the golden child was completely shattered. She looked like exactly what she was, a desperate, sad woman who had lost touch with reality. She stood up, not bothering to cover herself. You think you are better than me? She screamed. You think Paige is better than me? She is nothing. She is a boring, mousy little workaholic who got lucky because Grandma felt sorry for her. That money was mine. That inheritance was mine. And you should be mine. Get out, Grant said. He walked to the door and threw it open. Get out before I throw you out. Bella grabbed her coat, clutching it to her chest. She walked to the door, but she stopped on the threshold. She turned back to him, and her face settled into a mask of pure, cold hatred. You made a mistake, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that the microphones barely picked up. You think you are going to have a happy ending? You think you are going to marry her in 2 days? Watch me. She stepped closer, her eyes manic. I am going to ruin her. I am going to make sure every single person in that wedding venue knows she is trash. I am going to tell them she cheated. I am going to tell them she is a whore. And they will believe me, because I am Bella. I am the one they love. And she is just Paige. She walked out. Grant slammed the door behind her. He locked it. Then he leaned his forehead against the wood and took a deep breath. He looked up straight into the hidden camera in the entryway. I know you are watching Paige, he said. We got her. I sat in the coffee shop, tears running down my face. We had her. We had the recording. We had the video. We had the undeniable proof of her treachery. But more than that, I had the validation I had craved my entire life. I saw my sister for who she truly was, stripped of my parents' protection and her own manipulations. And I saw the man I was going to marry defend me with a ferocity that healed wounds I didn't even know I had. I wiped my face. I saved the video file to 3 different cloud accounts. I texted Grant, I am coming home. The trap was sprung. The evidence was secured. Bella thought she had issued a threat, but she had actually signed her own social death warrant. She was going to walk into that wedding thinking she held a grenade, not realizing she had already pulled the pin on herself. And in 48 hours, Grant and I were going to make sure she was the only one left standing in the blast radius. 24 hours before I was set to become a wife, the silence in our penthouse was deafening. Grant and I were not sleeping. We were sitting on the edge of our bed, fully dressed, watching the city lights of Boston flicker below us like distant warning flares. We had the video of Bella. We had the recording of her trying to seduce him. We thought we had the upper hand. We thought we were the ones setting the trap. But we had underestimated just how far my sister was willing to go to ensure there was no wedding to attend. At 2:14 in the morning, my phone lit up on the nightstand. The buzzing sound against the wood felt violent in the quiet room. I looked at the screen. It was my father. Gerald. My stomach dropped. Parents do not call at 2 in the morning to wish you sweet dreams. They call because someone is dead, or because the world is ending. I looked at Grant. He nodded once, his face grim. He reached over and tapped the record button on his own phone, which sat on the bedside table. I swiped answer and put it on speaker. Hello, I whispered. You are a disgrace. My father's voice filled the room. It was not shouting. It was a low, trembling growl of pure, unadulterated disgust. It was the voice he used when I crashed the car at 16. It was the voice he used when I told him I was majoring in architecture instead of business. But this time, it was laced with a hatred I had never heard before. Dad, what is going on? I asked, my hand flying to my mouth. Do not play innocent with me, Paige, he spat. Your mother is in the bathroom throwing up. She is sick, physically sick because of what you have done. We knew you were jealous. We knew you were petty. But we never thought you were a whore. The word hung in the air. Ugly. Hateful. Grant sat up straighter, his eyes narrowing. He reached out and gripped my hand, anchoring me. I do not know what you are talking about, I said, my voice shaking. We saw the messages, Paige, my father said. Bella showed us. She came to our room crying her eyes out. She did not want to show us. She tried to protect you. But she could not let Grant walk into a trap. She showed us the text between you and that ex-boyfriend of yours. What is his name? Mark. Mark. I had not spoken to Mark in 5 years. She showed us the photos, my father continued. You meeting him at the hotel. You laughing with him. You telling him that Grant is just a wallet. That you are going to bleed him dry and then leave him. I felt the room spin. It was a lie so elaborate, so specific, that it took my breath away. Bella had not just accused me of cheating. She had manufactured a digital paper trail. She had projected her own motives onto me. She was the one who saw Grant as a wallet. She was the one who wanted to bleed him dry. Dad, that is not true, I cried. I have not seen Mark in years. Bella is lying. She is making this up because she hates me. Stop lying! My mother's voice cut in. She must have taken the phone from him. Her voice was shrill, hysterical. We saw the screen page. We saw your name. We saw the timestamps. Last night. While Grant was at home, you were with him. How could you? How could you be so selfish? I was at the spa, I shouted at the phone. Tears streaming down my face. I was with my bridesmaids. Ask them. Bella checked, my mother screamed. She called the spa. You left early. She tracked your location. She was worried about you. And this is what she found. You are filthy. You are just like your grandmother, always thinking you are better than everyone else while you roll around in the dirt. The gaslighting was masterful. Bella had created a perfect circle of lies. She had covered every base. She had fake texts. She probably had a fake location history spoofed on some app. And my parents believed her instantly. They did not ask me for my side. They did not ask for proof. They accepted the worst version of me because it fit the narrative they had always written in their heads. The narrative where I was the disappointment and Bella was the martyr. Grant squeezed my hand so hard my knuckles cracked. He leaned close to the phone, but he did not speak. He signaled for me to keep them talking. He wanted it all on tape. So what happens now? I asked, my voice hollow. What happens now is you fix this, my father said, taking the phone back. You are going to call Grant in the morning. You are going to tell him you have cold feet. You are going to tell him you cannot go through with the wedding. You are going to end it. And if I don't, I asked. Then we will, he threatened. If you walk down that aisle tomorrow, we will stand up. We will object. We will show everyone those messages. We will show Grant the photos. We will save that poor man from you. Do you understand? We will not let you ruin this family's reputation by dragging us into your scandal. You will cancel the wedding or we will humiliate you in front of 300 people. They were blackmailing me. My own parents were blackmailing me into canceling my wedding to protect a lie fabricated by my sister. Why do you hate me? I whispered. We do not hate you. My mother said, her voice breaking into a sob. We love you. That is why we are stopping you. We are trying to save your soul, Paige. You need help. You are sick. Bella is the only one who cares enough to tell the truth. She is devastated. She is trying to save you from yourself. I looked at Grant. He was staring at the phone with a look of absolute incredulity. He had known they were bad. He had known they were toxic. But this was a level of dysfunction that defied logic. Fine, I said. I will handle it. You better, my father warned. Do not make us do this the hard way. You are already dead to us, Paige. Do not make it worse. The line went dead. I dropped the phone on the bed. I put my face in my hands and I screamed. It was a guttural animal sound of pure anguish. The betrayal was so deep it felt like my bones were breaking. They were ready to destroy me. They were ready to blow up my life based on screenshots from the daughter who had tapped their retirement fund dry. I can't do this, I sobbed, rocking back and forth. I can't walk down that aisle, Grant. I can't let them do this. We have to cancel. We have to call it off. Grant grabbed me by the shoulders. He turned me to face him. His eyes were fierce. No, he said firmly. We are not canceling anything. Did you hear them, Grant? I cried. They are going to object. They are going to show everyone fake texts. They are going to call me a whore in front of your partners, in front of your investors. I can't survive that. Grant wiped the tears from my face with his thumbs. Paige, listen to me. This is exactly what she wants. This is the end game. She knows she failed to seduce me. She knows she failed to break us up privately. So now she is going nuclear. She wants you to run. She wants you to hide. If you cancel the wedding, she wins. She gets to be the hero who saved me from the cheating bride. She gets to keep her narrative. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. But we have the truth, he whispered. We have the recordings. We have the video of her in this apartment half naked trying to wreck us. Do not you see? They just gave us the final piece of the puzzle. They just admitted on tape that they are planning to disrupt the wedding based on her lies. But they believe her, I said, my voice trembling. They really believe her. Good, Grant said, and his voice was cold. Let them believe her. Let them walk into that church feeling righteous. Let them think they have the upper hand, because the higher they climb, the harder they are going to fall. We are not going to say a word. We are not going to defend ourselves. Not yet. He picked up my phone and tossed it onto the nightstand. You are going to put on that dress, he said. You are going to walk down that aisle with your head held high. And when they stand up to object, when Bella plays her little game, we are going to bury them. We are going to play the recording of her in this room. We are going to show the video. And we are going to let Dion drop the hammer on the finances. I looked at him. I saw the man I loved, the man who had stood by me through infertility, through grief, through the renovation of our home and our lives. He wasn't scared. He was angry. And he was ready to fight for me. They said I was dead to them, I whispered. They are right, Grant said. The daughter they could bully is dead. The woman they could manipulate is dead. Tomorrow they meet the woman who burns their house down. I took a deep breath. The panic began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They wanted a show. They wanted a scandal. Fine, I would give them one. I am not calling them back, I said. No, Grant agreed. Let them sweat. Let them think you are defying them. Let them come loaded for bear. It will make the impact so much worse when their gun jams. We did not sleep that night. We lay in the dark holding each other, listening to the city breathe. Every time my phone buzzed with another text from my mother, another threat from my father, I didn't flinch. I let them stack up. Every message was more evidence. Every threat was more fuel for the fire. By the time the sun rose over the harbor, painting the sky in the same purples and oranges as the painting that brought us together, I was numb. I was no longer Paige the daughter. I was Paige the architect. And I was about to oversee the demolition of my own family tree. I got out of bed. I showered. I let the makeup artist paint over the dark circles under my eyes. I put on the Vera Wang gown, the replacement for the one Bella had ruined. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a bride, but I felt like an executioner. The limo ride to the venue was silent. My phone was off. I knew my parents were there. I knew Bella was there, probably wearing white, probably rehearsing her tears. They were waiting for me to crumble. They were waiting for me to apologize. They had no idea that I was bringing a projector and a sound system. As I stood at the back of the church waiting for the doors to open, I thought about the little girl who just wanted her mother to look at her. I thought about the teenager who worked 3 jobs while her sister got a new car. I thought about the woman who had begged for $25,000 to save her sister from debt, only to be called selfish. That woman was gone. The music started. The doors opened. I saw them in the front row. My mother's face was tight with anticipation. My father looked ready to war. Bella was smirking. I smiled back. It was time to go to church. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone lying face down on the duvet like a dormant grenade. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. My father's voice still echoed in my ears, a loop of hatred and blackmail that made my stomach churn. You are a disgrace. Cancel the wedding, or we will destroy you. I can't do it. I whispered the words, scraping against my raw throat. I can't walk into that church, Grant. I can't stand there in a white dress and wait for my own parents to stand up and call me a whore. I can't let them do that to you, to your family. We have to call it off. We have to issue a statement. Maybe we can elope later. Maybe we can just go away. I started to hyperventilate, the panic rising like a tide. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling. I need to call the planner. I need to call the venue. If we do it now, maybe we can stop the guests from coming. Maybe we can save some dignity. Grant's hand clamped over mine, stopping me before I could unlock the screen. His grip was firm, grounding. I looked up at him. His face was not the face of a man who was afraid. It was the face of a man who had just analyzed a failing market and found the one strategy that would yield a massive return. "Put the phone down, Paige," he said, his voice low and steady. "Grant, please." I begged, tears streaming down my face. "You heard them. They have fake texts. They have fake photos. They are going to ruin your reputation. Your partners are going to be there. Your investors. If Bella stands up and screams that I cheated on you, do you think they are going to wait for a forensic analysis? They will believe the spectacle. I can't do that to you." Grant took the phone from my hand and set it on the nightstand out of reach. He grabbed me by the shoulders and turned me so I had to look him in the eye. "Listen to me," he said. "Listen to me very carefully. If you cancel this wedding, Bella wins." I blinked, the tears blurring my vision. "What?" "She wins," Grant repeated. "Think about it. What is her goal? She wants to stop the wedding. She wants to separate us. She wants to prove that she has the power to destroy your happiness. If we cancel, she gets to be the hero. She gets to tell everyone she saved me from a bad marriage. She gets to tell Mom and Dad that she was right all along. She gets to keep her narrative. And you will spend the rest of your life hiding. You will always be the woman who ran away because she was guilty." "But I am not guilty," I sobbed. "I know that," Grant said. "You know that. But the world won't know that. If we cancel, we validate their lies. We give them the victory without them ever having to fire a shot." He let go of my shoulders and stood up, pacing the length of the bedroom. "No," he said, turning back to me. "We are not running. We are not hiding. We are going to give them exactly what they want. We are going to give them a show." I stared at him, confused. "A show? They want a public execution?" Grant said, his eyes cold and hard. "They want to humiliate you in front of 300 people. Fine. Let's give them a stage. But we are going to change the script." He walked over to the desk in the corner of the room where his laptop sat. He opened it and started typing. "We are not going to cancel," he said. "We are going to turn that altar into a courtroom. We are going to let them walk into the trap they set for themselves." "But how?" I asked, wiping my face. "They are going to object." "Exactly," Grant said. "We need them to object. We need Bella to stand up in that dress she bought. We need your parents to play the outraged victims. We need them to commit to the lie in front of everyone. Because once they do that, once they expose themselves publicly, they can't take it back." He turned the laptop screen toward me. It was a folder labeled "The Evidence." Inside were the video files from our apartment security cameras, the audio recording of Bella trying to seduce him, the bank statements Dion had given us. "We have the truth," Paige, Grant said. "But the truth is useless if nobody hears it. If we cancel, we just have a private dispute. If we go through with the wedding, we have an audience. We have witnesses. We have 300 of the most influential people in our lives sitting in one room." He walked back to the bed and sat down beside me, taking my hands again. "Here's the plan," he said. "We go dark, completely dark. We do not answer their calls. We do not reply to their texts. We do not defend ourselves. We let them think they have won. We let them think you are terrified. We let them think we are fighting. We let them think the wedding is hanging by a thread." "Why?" I asked. "Because if they think we are weak, they will get arrogant," Grant explained. "If they think I believe the lies about you, they will feel safe. They will walk into that church expecting a broken bride and a furious groom. They will be so focused on their victory lap that they won't see the guillotine until the blade drops." I looked at the folder on the screen. I looked at Grant. I thought about the years of torment, The way Bella had taken everything from me, the way my parents had enabled her, the way they had just blackmailed me at 2 in the morning. Fear began to recede, replaced by a cold, simmering anger. Grant was right. Running was what the old Paige would have done. The Paige who wanted to keep the peace. The Paige who paid for the ruined dress. But that Paige had died the moment her mother threatened to disown her for a lie. "We need Dion," I said, my voice steadying. "I already texted him," Grant said. "He is ready. He is bringing the bank statements. He is filing for divorce tomorrow morning, but he will be at the church. He wants this just as much as we do." "And the equipment?" I asked. "You said we need to play the recording." "I will call the AV team at the venue first thing in the morning," Grant said. "I will tell them we have a special surprise presentation for the bride. A video montage. They will set up a projector and hook into the sound system. Bella will think it is a romantic gesture. She won't know it is her confession until she hears her own voice." I took a deep breath. It was risky. It was insane. It was perfect. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." "Good," Grant said. "Now give me your phone." I handed it to him. He powered it down completely. Then he powered down his own. "Silence," he said. "Absolute silence. Let them sweat. Let them wonder if we called it off. Let them walk into that church unsure of what is going to happen. The uncertainty will make them volatile. It will make Bella desperate. She will want to ensure the destruction, so she will make a move. She will interrupt the ceremony, and when she does, we will be ready." He put the phones in the drawer and turned off the lamp. The room plunged into darkness, but neither of us slept. We lay there side by side like soldiers in a trench waiting for dawn. The next 12 hours were a study in psychological warfare. My parents must have called 100 times. The landline in the kitchen rang incessantly until Grant unplugged it. I could imagine the scene at their house. The panic, the gloating, Bella spinning her web convincing them that my silence was an admission of guilt. I spent the morning moving through the motions of a bride, but I felt like a spy. The makeup artist arrived and commented on how calm I was. She didn't know it wasn't calm. It was the icy detachment of someone who had already accepted the end of the world and was just waiting for the explosion. I put on the new dress. It was beautiful, but it felt like armor. I looked in the mirror. I didn't see a woman about to be married. I saw a woman about to go to war. The limo ride to the venue was the longest hour of my life. Grant held my hand the entire time, but we didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. The plan was set. The trap was laid. When we pulled up to the Ocean Cliff Hotel, I saw them. My parents' car was in the parking lot. Bella's car was there. They had come. They hadn't stayed away in protest. They had come to finish the job. They had come to ensure the humiliation was public and permanent. I walked into the bridal suite. My bridesmaids were there, chattering happily, unaware that they were about to witness a massacre. I smiled. I nodded. I played the part. Then the coordinator came in. "It is time," she said. I walked to the doors of the sanctuary. I could hear the string quartet playing. I could hear the murmur of the crowd. I looked through the crack in the doors. I saw my parents in the front row. My mother was whispering to my father, her face tight with malicious anticipation. Bella was sitting next to them wearing white. Of course she was. She was ready to take my place. She was ready to be the bride. Grant was already at the altar. He stood tall, his face impassive. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at the doors. He was waiting for me. I took a deep breath. The silence was over. The time for hiding was gone. I signaled the coordinator. "Open the doors." As the wood swung outward and the music swelled, I stepped into the aisle. I saw heads turn. I saw smiles. And then I saw the faces of my family drop. They looked shocked. They hadn't expected me to show up. They thought the blackmail had worked. I locked eyes with Bella. She looked furious. She leaned over and whispered something to my mother. My mother nodded. I knew then that Grant was right. They weren't going to let me get married. They were going to object. They were going to scream. They were going to try to burn me down. But I was holding the match. I walked down the aisle, my steps steady, my head high. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a queen walking to her coronation, or perhaps her judgment day. I reached the altar. I took Grant's hand. "You ready?" he whispered. I looked at my sister, who was already shifting in her seat, preparing to stand. I looked at my parents, who were exchanging dark glances. "Let them speak," I whispered back. The officiant began. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I waited. Grant waited. The air was thick with tension. And then, just as the officiant took a breath to continue, the sound of silk rustling broke the silence. Bella stood up, and the trial began. The silence in the Ocean Cliff Hotel ballroom was heavy enough to crush bones. My cheek still throbbed where my mother had slapped me, a physical brand of her betrayal, but the pain felt distant now, like it was happening to someone else. I stood at the altar, my hand encased in Grant's, and watched the tableau before me. My sister Bella stood in the center of the aisle in her white lace gown, her chest heaving with the exertion of her lie. My parents flanked her, their faces masks of self-righteous indignation, waiting for Grant to cast me aside. They expected him to drop my hand. They expected him to weep or rage or demand the ring back. They expected the script they had written to play out exactly as they intended. But Grant did not drop my hand. Instead, he tightened his grip, his fingers interlacing with mine in a lock that said, "I have you." He stepped forward, shielding me with his body, and raised the microphone to his lips. His movement was slow, deliberate, the movement of a predator who knows the trap has already snapped shut. "You say you have proof," Grant said, his voice booming through the speakers, calm and terrifyingly level. "You say you saw Paige with another man. You say she is the one who is unfaithful." "Yes," Bella screamed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "I saw it. I saw everything. She is a liar, Grant. She is trash. She does not deserve you." Grant nodded slowly, as if considering her words. Then he turned his gaze to the sound booth at the back of the room. He raised his free hand and made a simple cutting motion. "Then, let us talk about lies," Grant said. "And let us talk about who exactly has been trying to get into my bed." He signaled the sound engineer. A sharp screech of feedback cut through the air, making the guests wince. Then silence. And then a voice filled the room. It was not the hysterical, weeping voice Bella was using now. It was a voice dripping with honey and venom. It was unmistakably Bella, but it was a version of her that most of the people in this room had never heard. "Come on, Grant," the voice purred from the speakers, crystal clear and magnified to a deafening volume. "You know you do not want to marry her. Paige is so boring. She is so vanilla. She works all the time. She does not know how to take care of a man like you." A collective gasp ripped through the 300 guests. It sounded like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the tent at once. I saw my mother's hand fly to her mouth. My father's eyes bulged. Bella froze her face, draining of color until she looked like a wax figure. The recording continued. It was the conversation from 48 hours ago. The conversation Grant and I had listened to in real time, the one that had sealed her fate. "Bella, get off me!" Grant's recorded voice said, sharp and disgusted. "You are my fiancé's sister. What are you doing?" "I am doing what you want," Bella's voice replied on the tape, sultry and desperate. "I know you look at me. I know you see the difference. I am hotter than her. I am younger. I can give you things she cannot. Why settle for the copy when you can have the upgrade? Just cancel the wedding. Tell her you changed your mind. We can go to the Maldives together next week. I already looked up flights." The guests turned to look at Bella. The pity and confusion that had been directed at me moments ago evaporated, replaced by a dawning horror. They were looking at a woman who had just accused her sister of cheating while listening to audio of herself trying to seduce her sister's fiancé. The recording played on, relentless. "Get out!" Grant's voice shouted. "Get out of my house before I throw you out!" And then came the threat. The threat that tied everything together. "You will regret this," Bella's voice screamed from the speakers, vicious and ugly. If you do not choose me, I will make sure you never marry her. I will ruin her. I will tell everyone she cheated. I will destroy this wedding." The audio cut off with a click. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a courtroom after a guilty verdict. The sea breeze snapped the canvas of the tent, the only sound in a room full of people who were too stunned to breathe. Grant lowered the microphone. He looked at Bella, who was standing trembling in the aisle. "You said you would tell everyone she cheated." Grant said, his voice cold. "You said you would destroy the wedding, and here you are right on schedule." Bella looked around wildly. She looked at the guests who were staring at her with open disgust. She looked at Grant's business partners, men and women of influence who were shaking their heads. She looked at our cousins, our aunts and uncles, the people she had manipulated for years. They were all looking at her like she was something rotting in the sun. She looked at our parents. My mother was staring at the speaker tower, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. My father looked like he had been struck by lightning. They had believed her. They had slapped me for her. And now they were hearing their golden child, their perfect daughter, plotting to destroy me because she wanted my life. Bella's eyes darted back to Grant. Panic set in. True primal panic. She realized she was cornered. She realized the narrative she had carefully constructed, the story of the concerned sister saving the groom, had just been incinerated. "That is not me!" Bella shrieked. Her voice was high and thin, cracking with hysteria. She pointed at the speakers. "That is not real. That is not my voice." Grant raised an eyebrow. "Really? It sounds exactly like you." "It is fake!" Bella screamed, stomping her foot. "It is AI. He made it up. He used a computer to make me say those things. He is trying to frame me because I caught Paige cheating." She turned to the crowd, her hands waving frantically. "Do not believe him. Technology can do anything now." He took my voice from Instagram videos, and he made a deep fake. He is protecting her. They are in on it together. Why would I say those things? I love my sister. I am happily married. Why would I try to seduce him? It makes no sense. It is AI. It is a trick. The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. Even in the face of absolute proof, she doubled down. She was banking on the confusion of the older generation, banking on the idea that technology was a magic wand that could explain away her sins. My mother, desperate for a lifeline, grabbed onto it. "Yes," Cynthia cried out, stepping toward Bella. "Yes, that must be it. Bella would never do that. She loves Dion. She loves Paige. Grant, how could you? How could you manufacture something so vile to discredit her?" I stepped forward then. I looked at my mother, the woman who had just hit me, the woman who was currently trying to convince herself that a computer program was more plausible than her daughter's jealousy. "Mom, stop," I said. My voice was weary. "Just stop. You stay out of this," Gerald barked, though his voice lacked its earlier fire. He looked uncertain now, his eyes darting between Grant and Bella. "This is a sick game, Grant. If you forge that recording, I will sue you. I will sue you for defamation." Grant laughed. It was a dark sound. Defamation. "You want to talk about defamation, Gerald? Your daughter just accused my wife of adultery in front of 300 people based on Photoshop and lies." "It is not a lie," Bella insisted, tears streaming down her face again. "The recording is the lie. I never went to your apartment. I never said those things. I was at home with my husband. Ask Dion. He will tell you. I was home all night. She was playing her final card. Dion, her husband, the man she bullied and belittled, the man she treated like an ATM. She was counting on him to lie for her. She was counting on him to be the good soldier he had always been." She looked around the room, searching for him. "Dion," she shouted. "Dion, tell them. Tell them I was home. Tell them this is a trick." I looked at Grant. He gave me a small nod. He raised the microphone again. "You say it is AI," Grant said to Bella. "You say you were never in my apartment. You say you never took off your coat. You say you never tried to touch me." "I never did," Bella sobbed. "I would never. I am a faithful wife." Grant turned to the projectionist. Show them, he said. The large screen behind the altar, the one that was supposed to show a montage of our childhood photos, and our courtship flickered to life. The lights in the tent dimmed. Bella froze. No, she whispered. Grant looked at her, his eyes hard as flint. Audio can be faked, Bella Grant said. But 4K video from 3 different angles is a little harder to fabricate. The screen went bright, and suddenly everyone in the room was looking into Grant's living room. The timestamp in the corner read 48 hours ago. The image was crisp, clear, and undeniable. And there she was, Bella, walking through the door in her trench coat, dropping the box. The video played on the massive screen looming over the altar like the eye of God. The crowd watched in hushed fascination as the woman on the screen cried fake tears. They watched as she clung to Grant. They watched with collective breath held as she untied the belt of her coat. Bella let out a sound that wasn't quite human. It was a strangled yelp. She lunged toward the projector as if she could physically stop the light from hitting the screen. "Turn it off," she screamed. "Turn it off right now!" But nobody moved. My parents were paralyzed, staring up at the giant image of their daughter stripping in her future brother-in-law's apartment. They watched as the coat fell to the floor. They watched as she stood there in the black lace lingerie, the same lingerie I knew she had bought with Dayon's money. The Bella on the screen stepped over the coat. The Bella in the aisle fell to her knees, covering her face with her hands. "It is not real," she moaned into her palms, but her voice was weak now. Nobody was listening. The video continued. The guests watched Bella stalk Grant around the kitchen island. They heard the audio sync perfectly with the video, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the recording was genuine. They watched her lunge at him. They watched him shove her away. They watched her fall. And then they watched her face change. They saw the mask slip. They saw the pure, unadulterated hatred in her eyes as she stood up and delivered her threat. "I will ruin her. I will tell everyone she cheated. I will destroy this wedding." The video froze on that frame. Bella's face twisted, and ugly loomed over the congregation. Grant looked down at the real Bella huddled on the floor in her white dress, a puddle of ruined vanity. "Is that AI?" Bella Grant asked. "Did I generate that with a computer? Or is that you in my house trying to ruin your sister's life because you cannot stand the fact that she is happy?" My mother sat down heavily in the front row. She put her hand over her heart. She looked like she was aging in fast forward. She looked from the screen to me. Her eyes were wide, filled with a sudden terrifying clarity. She had slapped me. She had called me a disgrace. And the whole time the monster had been the one she was protecting. My father was shaking. He looked at Bella with a mixture of revulsion and betrayal. He had staked his reputation on her. He had stood up and canceled the wedding on her word. And she had played him for a fool. I looked at the crowd. The shock had turned to anger. I saw my cousins whispering furiously. I saw Grant's business partners looking at my parents with open disdain. The social capital my family hoarded like gold was evaporating in the heat of the projector bulb. But we weren't done. Grant looked at me. I nodded. We had broken her story. We had exposed her character. But there was one more loose end. One more person who deserved his moment. One more piece of evidence that would ensure she could never ever crawl back from this. Grant looked past Bella to the middle of the aisle. "You wanted Dion to speak for you," Grant said to her. "You wanted him to be your alibi. Well, he is here." Bella looked up, hope flaring in her eyes for a second. "Dion," she rasped. "Dion, help me. Tell them." Dion stood up. He was wearing a dark suit, immaculate and pressed. He held a manila envelope in his hands. He didn't look at Bella. He walked past her as if she were a piece of furniture. He walked up the steps to the altar and stood next to Grant. He took the microphone. "I cannot help you," Bella, Dion said. His voice was calm, the voice of a man who deals in facts and figures. "Because I was not home either. I was at the bank, And I was looking at what you did to our retirement fund. The room went silent again. The video was bad. But money. In my family, money was everything. And Dion was about to show them just how much this betrayal had cost. Audio can be manipulated. Bella Grant said, his voice cutting through the hysteria rising in the tent like a knife through silk. You can claim deepfakes. You can claim voice actors. You can claim anything you want when it is just a sound wave in the air. But body language, physical presence, the way light hits a face, that is much harder to forge, especially in 4K resolution from 3 different angles. He did not wait for her to respond. He did not give her time to spin another lie. He simply turned to the projectionist who was standing in the shadows of the tech booth looking pale but determined. "Roll it," Grant commanded. The massive screen behind the altar began to descend. It was a canvas meant for a montage of our childhood photos. It was meant to show us blowing out birthday candles and graduating college and falling in love. It was meant to be a testament to our past. Instead, it was about to become the autopsy of my sister's character. The lights in the tent dimmed automatically, plunging the 300 guests into a twilight gloom. The only light came from the projector beam, cutting through the salt air, like a lighthouse warning of a shipwreck. "No," Bella whispered. It was a sound of pure terror. She scrambled to her feet, her white dress tangling around her legs. She looked like a trapped animal. "Don't. Please don't." Grant stepped aside, giving the audience a clear view. The screen flickered to life. The image was crystal clear. It was the interior of Grant's penthouse. The timestamp in the upper right corner read 48 hours ago. The wide-angle lens captured everything. The modern art on the walls, the city skyline out the window, and the woman standing in the entryway. A collective gasp swept through the room. There was no mistaking who it was. It was Bella. She was wearing the beige trench coat belted tight. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her makeup was flawless. She looked exactly as she had looked 2 days ago. "Is that a computer program?" Bella Grant asked, his voice echoing in the silence. "Is that a digital avatar? Or is that you standing in my foyer while your sister was at her final dress fitting?" Bella did not answer. She stared up at the screen, her hands covering her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. She was watching her own social execution play out in high definition. The video played. The sound was synced perfectly. The guests watched as the on-screen Bella cried. They watched the performance, the trembling shoulders, the fake sobs about Dion hitting her. I looked at Dion in the front row. He was watching the screen with a look of stone-cold detachment. He knew he hadn't touched her. Now everyone else knew it too. Then came the moment that sucked the air out of the room. On the giant screen, Bella stepped closer to Grant. She reached for the belt of her coat. Her fingers moved with practiced ease. The knot came undone. She shrugged her shoulders, and the heavy fabric slid down her arms, pooling on the floor like a shed skin. The image was shocking. Underneath the coat, she was wearing nothing but the black lace bodysuit. It was aggressive. It was revealing. It was the lingerie she had bought with the money meant for her husband's retirement. My mother let out a sound that was half sob, half retch. She slumped forward in her seat, clutching her chest. She had defended Bella's virtue moments ago. She had called me a liar for suggesting Bella would ever betray me. Now she was staring at her daughter standing half naked in her future son-in-law's apartment. My father sat frozen. His face was a mask of gray shock. He was watching the daughter he had championed, the daughter he had prioritized over me for 29 years, debase herself on a 20-foot screen. He saw the desperation. He saw the calculation. "Turn it off," Bella shrieked. Her voice was raw, tearing at her throat. "Turn it off right now. You can't show this. It is private. It stopped being private when you tried to stop my wedding with a lie," Grant said over the audio of the video. "You made this public, Bella. You brought this into the light." The video continued. The guests watched in morbid fascination as the on-screen Bella stalked Grant. They saw her corner him against the kitchen island. They saw the hunger in her eyes, a look so predatory it made people look away. Why settle for the copy when you can have the upgrade? The video. Bella purred. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was one of my bridesmaids, Linda. She was crying silent tears of shock. I reached up and squeezed her hand, but I did not look away. I forced myself to watch. I needed to see it. I needed to see the moment my parents finally understood what they had raised. The on-screen Grant backed away. He looked disgusted. He looked angry. And then Bella lunged. It was violent. She threw herself at him, grabbing his face, trying to force her mouth onto his. It was an assault. Plain and simple. Grant shoved her. The force of it sent her stumbling back. She tripped over the coat and fell hard. The real Bella in the aisle flinched as her on-screen self hit the floor. She was reliving the humiliation, but this time she had an audience of 300. The video Bella sat up, and then the transformation happened. The guests watched in horror as her face shifted. The seductress vanished. The victim vanished. In their place sat a woman consumed by pure, unadulterated malice. Her face twisted, her lips pulled back from her teeth in a snarl. "You think you are better than me?" she screamed on the screen. "She is nothing. She is a boring, mousy little workaholic." My mother covered her ears. She was rocking back and forth in her chair, shaking her head. No, she moaned, no, no, no. This was the daughter she had protected. This was the daughter she had slapped me for. She was hearing Bella's true inner monologue for the first time. She was hearing the contempt Bella held not just for me, but for the entire world that dared to deny her what she wanted. The video Bella stood up. She did not bother to cover herself. She walked to the door. She turned back. And she delivered the line that sealed her fate. I will ruin her. I will tell everyone she cheated. I will destroy this wedding. The threat echoed through the tent, bouncing off the silk draping and the floral arrangements. It hung in the air, heavy and toxic. Grant signaled the booth. The image froze. Bella's face, distorted with rage, loomed over us all. The lights came up slowly. The sudden brightness was blinding. Grant looked down at Bella. She was on her knees in the middle of the aisle, weeping. But they weren't the pretty, manipulative tears she had used before. These were the ugly, snotty tears of someone who has lost everything. So Grant said, his voice quiet now but carrying to every corner of the room. Was that AI, Bella? Did I program a computer to make you strip in my living room? Did I write the code that made you threaten to frame your sister? Bella didn't answer. She couldn't. There was no lie left to tell. The visual evidence was absolute. Grant turned to my parents. They were broken. My father looked like a man who had just watched his house burn down with him inside. My mother looked like a ghost. You believed her, Grant said to them. You didn't ask a single question. You didn't ask for proof. You just took her word and you used it to bludgeon Paige. You called her a whore, Gerald. You slapped her, Cynthia, because you wanted to believe that Bella was the good one. You wanted to believe that Paige was the failure. He pointed at the frozen image on the screen. Look at her, Grant commanded. Look at your masterpiece. That is who you raised. That is the golden child. A woman who would destroy her own sister's happiness because she is too jealous to stand it. A woman who would steal from her husband to fund a fantasy. A woman who would lie to your faces and let you destroy your relationship with your other daughter just to cover her own tracks. My father looked up. His eyes met mine. For the first time in my life, I saw shame in them. Deep, crushing shame. He looked at my cheek where the red mark from my mother's slap was still visible under the makeup. He looked at the screen where Bella's hate-filled face stared back at him. He realized then that he had bet on the wrong horse. He realized that every time he had taken Bella's side, every time he had told me to be more generous, every time he had called me selfish, he had been feeding a monster. And now that monster had eaten him alive. My mother stood up slowly. She was shaking so hard she had to hold on to the pew in front of her. She looked at Bella. You lied, she whispered. Her voice was thin, reedy. You told us you saw her. You swore on your life. Bella looked up, her mascara running down her face in black streaks. Mom, she rasped, reaching out a hand. Mom, please. He tricked me. Don't touch me, my mother screamed. She recoiled as if Bella were a snake. You made me slap her. You made me hit my own child. You made me hate her. And it was all a lie. It wasn't a lie, Bella wailed, desperate now, clawing at the air. I did it for us. I did it so we could have the money. Grant has so much money, Mom. We could have been set. The room gasped again. She had admitted it. In her panic, she had said the quiet part out loud. It was never about protecting Grant. It was never about morals. It was about the money. You are sick, my father said, his voice trembling. He stood up and stepped away from her, creating a physical distance between them. You are sick, and we are done. The rejection was total. Bella looked from her mother to her father, seeing the doors close. The parents who had enabled her, who had bailed her out, who had worshipped the ground she walked on, were looking at her with revulsion. I stood next to Grant, my hand still in his. I watched them crumble. I watched the dynasty of lies my family had built collapse under the weight of 4K video resolution. I should have felt pity. I should have felt sad. But as I looked at the frozen image of my sister threatening to ruin me, and then looked at the real woman sobbing on the floor, I felt nothing but a cold, clean sense of justice. We weren't done yet, though. Grant squeezed my hand. We had exposed the emotional betrayal. We had exposed the lies. But there was one more layer to peel back. The financial rot. The theft. Grant looked toward the back of the aisle. Dion, he said. The crowd turned. Dayon was standing there holding the manila envelope. He looked tired, but he looked strong. He looked like a man who was finally ready to settle the score. He walked toward the altar, his steps heavy and deliberate. He didn't look at Bella. He didn't look at my parents. He walked up the steps and stood next to Grant. The video proved she was a liar, Grant said. But Dion is here to prove she is a thief. Dayon opened the envelope. He pulled out the bank statements. He walked over to the projector table where the laptop sat connected to the screen. He placed a document under the document camera that the AV team had set up. The image on the big screen changed. Bella's face disappeared, replaced by a spreadsheet. Numbers, dates, transactions, and the room went quiet again, waiting for the final blow. The room was silent enough to hear the waves crashing against the cliffs outside, but inside the tent, the atmosphere was suffocating. The video of Bella stripping in my fiancé's apartment had faded to black, leaving her sobbing on the floor, a ruined bride in a dress she had no right to wear. But the trial was not over. Grant stepped back from the microphone and gestured to the man standing at the foot of the altar. Dion walked up the steps. He looked different than I had ever seen him. For 5 years, I had known him as the quiet shadow behind my sister's spotlight. He was the man who held her purse while she took selfies. He was the man who worked 80-hour weeks during tax season to fund her lifestyle while she complained that he was boring. But as he stood behind the podium adjusting his glasses, he did not look boring. He looked dangerous. He looked like a man who had nothing left to lose, and that made him the most powerful person in the room. He placed the manila envelope on the lectern. He did not look at Bella. He looked out at the crowd, his eyes scanning the faces of the people who had dismissed him for years. My name is Dayon Davis, he said, his voice steady and amplified by the speakers. Most of you know me as Bella's husband. Some of you probably do not know me at all. I am a certified public accountant. I spend my life looking for discrepancies. I spend my life finding the truth in numbers because numbers do not lie. People lie. My wife lies. Her parents lie. But the math always tells the truth. He opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He placed it under the document camera that the AV team had set up beside the projector. The image on the massive screen behind us shifted. The frozen frame of Bella's hateful face was replaced by a stark black and white bank statement. The header read, Joint Retirement Savings. The balance at the top of the page was $50,000. It was a modest sum to some of the people in this room, but I knew how hard Dion had worked for it. I knew he drove a 10-year-old Honda so he could put that money away. Dion pointed to a line item highlighted in yellow. 3 days ago, Dion said, his voice devoid of emotion. Bella told me she needed to borrow a small amount of money to pay off a credit card she had hidden from me. She was crying. She said she was terrified of the interest rates. She said she wanted to start fresh. I trusted her. I gave her access to the account to transfer $5,000. He paused, letting the statement sink in. Look at the withdrawal date. Look at the amount. On the screen, the numbers were magnified 10 feet tall. The date was 3 days ago. The withdrawal was not $5,000. It was $50,000. The entire balance. The closing balance at the bottom of the page was 0.00. The crowd murmured. Theft. It was pure theft. She had wiped him out. Bella stopped crying. She looked up from the floor, her face streaked with mascara. It was for us, she screamed, her voice shrill and desperate. I was investing it. I was going to double it. You do not understand business, Dion. Dion did not even blink. He removed the bank statement and placed a new document under the camera. It was an email confirmation from an airline. You are right, Bella, Dion said. I do not understand your business, because your business seems to be running away with another man. The itinerary appeared on the screen. It was a flight confirmation for next Monday. One way, first class. Destination Male Maldives. Passenger 1 Bella Davis, Passenger 2 Grant Miller. The gasp from the audience was louder this time. It was a sound of pure shock. She had not just fantasized about stealing him, she had booked the tickets. She had used her husband's life savings to pay for a honeymoon with her sister's fiancé. A fiancé who had never agreed to go. Grant stepped up to the microphone, leaning in next to Dion. Just for the record, Grant said, his voice icy. I did not know about this trip. I did not agree to this trip. And I certainly did not ask her to pay for it with stolen money. Dion looked down at his wife. You spent $20,000 on these tickets, Bella. You spent the money we were saving for a house. You spent the money we were saving for a family. And you did it because you were so deluded, so arrogant, that you thought you could just show up at Grant's door in your underwear, and he would leave the woman he loves for you. Bella shook her head frantically. No, Dion. It was a surprise. It was for us. I put Grant's name because I was confused. I meant to put your name. It was a typo. A typo, Dion repeated. You accidentally typed Grant Miller instead of Dion Davis. You accidentally entered his passport number, which you must have stolen from Paige's home office when you were snooping around last month. Bella went silent. She had been caught. The lie was too big, too stupid to sustain. Dion wasn't finished. He reached into the envelope again. But the tickets were not the only thing you bought, he said. You had $30,000 left, and I wondered where it went. I thought maybe you bought jewelry, maybe you bought clothes. But then I looked at the wire transfers. He placed a new document under the camera. It was a transfer receipt. The amount was $10,000. The recipient was labeled clearly. Gerald and Cynthia Davis, my parents. I spun around to look at them. My mother was clutching her purse to her chest, as if she could physically block the truth from hitting her. My father was staring at the floor, his face a mask of gray ash. You paid them, Dion said. You paid your own parents. Why would you pay them $10,000, Bella? Bella did not answer. She was rocking back and forth on her knees, a low keen escaping her throat. I will tell you why, Dion continued, because I read the memo line on the draft. He zoomed in on the document. There in the notes section, typed in Bella's frantic shorthand, were 2 words. Wedding help. It sounded innocent enough. But Dion had the context. I checked the text logs, Dion said. I recovered the deleted messages from your cloud account, Bella. You sent this money 2 hours after you came back from Grant's apartment. 2 hours after he rejected you. You texted your mother and said, he said no. We have to go to Plan B. I am sending the money. Make sure you are ready to back me up at the altar." The room erupted. It was pandemonium. My parents hadn't just believed a lie. They had been paid to believe it. They had accepted a bribe from their daughter to destroy their other daughter's wedding. They had sold me out for $10,000 of stolen retirement money. My mother stood up, her hands shaking. "That is not true," she shrieked. "That money was a loan. Bella owed us. It was for her car." Dion looked at her with a disgust so profound it felt physical. "Stop lying, Cynthia," he said. "Just stop. You took the money. You knew she stole it from me. You knew she was planning to ruin this wedding. You knew she was lying about Paige cheating. You took the cash and you agreed to play your part. You agreed to stand up and object. You agreed to call your own daughter a whore. And you did it for 10 grand. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "That is what Paige is worth to you," he said. $10,000. You sold her happiness for the price of a used Honda." My father looked up then. He looked at me. His eyes were pleading, desperate. "Paige," he rasped. "We didn't know about the tickets. We didn't know she stole it from Dayon. We thought she was just borrowing it. We needed the money. The business is failing. You know that. We were desperate." I stared at him. The man who had raised me. The man who had walked me halfway down the aisle before stopping to denounce me. He was admitting it. He was admitting that his morality had a price tag. "You were desperate," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "So you decided to destroy me. You decided that my life, my marriage, my reputation was collateral damage you were willing to accept to pay off a debt. We thought Grant would leave you," my mother sobbed. "We thought if the wedding was canceled, Bella could swoop in. She said she could fix it. She said she could get him to invest. We thought we were saving the family." "Saving the family?" Grant repeated, his voice incredulous. "By destroying your daughter, by framing her for adultery, by helping your other daughter commit grand larceny." He looked at the crowd. 300 witnesses, 300 people who now knew exactly what the Davis family stood for. Dion took the papers off the projector. The screen went white, blindingly bright in the dim tent. "I am done," Dion said. He looked down at Bella. "I am done being your bank account. I am done being your doormat. I filed for divorce this morning, Bella, and I spoke to the district attorney." Bella's head snapped up. "The DA. Theft over a certain amount is a felony," Dion said. $50,000 is a Class B felony. I am pressing charges. The police are waiting outside. They were just waiting for me to finish my statement." Bella screamed. It was a primal sound of terror. She scrambled to her feet, looking for an exit, looking for escape. But there was nowhere to go. The aisle was blocked by security. The exits were manned. Dion turned to me, too. He looked exhausted, broken, but he also looked free. "I am sorry, Paige," he said. "I should have stopped her sooner. I should have seen it coming. But I hope this helps. I hope this clears your name." I walked over to him. I ignored my dress. I ignored the crowd. I hugged him. I hugged the brother-in-law who had lost everything to save me. "Thank you," I whispered. "You saved my life." He pulled back and gave me a sad smile. "No," he said. "I just balanced the books." He walked down the steps of the altar. He didn't look back at his wife. He didn't look back at my parents. He walked straight toward the exit, his head held high. Grant stepped up to me. He took the microphone one last time. "You heard the man," Grant said to the crowd. "The books are balanced, the lies are exposed, and now it is time to take out the trash." He pointed to the back of the room where the security team was waiting. "Get them out," Grant ordered. The guards moved in. They were not gentle. They didn't need to be. They grabbed Bella, who was trying to run toward the side exit. They grabbed my father, who was trying to sit back down as if he could simply blend into the crowd. They grabbed my mother, who was clinging to the pew, wailing about her heart condition. The guests watched in silence as my family was forcibly removed from my wedding. There was no sympathy in the room. There was only the cold, hard judgment of 300 people who had seen the receipts. As they were dragged past the rows of chairs, my father shouted one last thing. "Paige, you are ungrateful. We gave you life." I picked up the microphone. And today, I said, my voice ringing out over the sound of the waves, "I am taking it back." The doors slammed shut behind them. The silence returned. But it wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence of before. It was the silence of a clean slate. The air felt lighter. The tension had snapped, leaving behind a sense of absolute finality. I looked at Grant. He was smiling at me. It was the same smile he had given me the night we met when he handed me the painting of the skyline. It was the smile of a man who saw me, who knew me, and who would burn the world down to protect me. "I think," Grant said, his eyes twinkling, "that we have a wedding to finish." I looked down at my dress. It was perfect. I looked at my groom. He was perfect. I looked at the empty aisle where my family used to be. It was perfect. "I am ready," I said. And as the officiant cleared his throat to begin again, I knew that the real ceremony had already happened. We had vowed to stand by each other in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad. And we had just survived the worst. The rest was just a formality. The real marriage had started the moment we decided to fight back. The command hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. Grant pointed to the back of the room, and the security team moved in. They were not the polite ushers who had handed out programs an hour ago. These were large men in dark suits with earpieces and expressions that brokered no argument. They moved with the efficiency of a SWAT team sweeping down the aisle toward my family. My father Gerald tried to stand his ground. He puffed out his chest, attempting to summon the authority he used to wield in boardrooms before his reputation crumbled. "Do not touch me," he barked as a guard approached. "I am the father of the bride. You cannot throw me out of my own daughter's wedding." The guard did not blink. He simply gripped my father's arm with a hand the size of a catcher's mitt. "Sir, you are trespassing on private property. You have 5 seconds to walk out, or you will be dragged out." My mother let out a wail that sounded less like grief and more like a siren. She clutched the pew, her knuckles white. "Grant," she pleaded, looking past the guards to the altar. "Grant, tell them to stop. We are family. This is a mistake. We were just trying to protect you." Grant did not even look at her. He was watching the guards, watching the trash get taken out, just as he had promised. Bella was the worst. When the guard reached for her, she went feral. She tried to run, darting toward the side exit, her white lace train tangling around her ankles. She looked like a deranged parody of a bride fleeing the altar. But she was not fast enough. 2 guards intercepted her, grabbing her by the elbows. "Let go of me!" she shrieked, kicking her legs. "I am the maid of honor. You cannot do this. I will sue you. I will sue all of you." "You can add it to the pile." Dion's voice cut through her screaming. Dion had walked down the aisle following the guards. He stopped at the double doors blocking the only exit. He looked like a sentinel. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. It was thick. It was legal. The guards dragged Bella toward the doors. She was thrashing, weeping, her makeup running down her face in black rivers. When they reached Dion, they paused, allowing him his final moment. Bella looked at her husband. Her eyes were wild, desperate. "Dion, baby, tell them. Tell them it was a mistake. I will put the money back. I swear, we can fix this." Dion looked at her with eyes that were completely dead. There was no love left in them. There was no patience. There was only the cold, hard calculation of a man who had finally done the math and realized the cost was too high. "You cannot put it back," Bella Dion said calmly, "because you spent it, and you cannot fix this." He shoved the papers into her hand. Her fingers closed around them reflexively. "What is this?" she whispered. "That is a divorce petition," Dion said, citing adultery, attempted fraud, and grand larceny. "And the page underneath it is a restraining order. You are not allowed within 500 feet of me or our bank accounts." Bella stared at the papers, shaking her head. No, Dion, you cannot leave me. I have nothing. You have $75,000 in debt, Dion corrected. And as of this morning, that debt is entirely yours. I spoke to the fraud department. I showed them the transfers. I showed them the forged signatures. They are very interested in speaking with you. He stepped aside, opening the path to the parking lot. The police are waiting outside, Dion said. They are right next to the valet stand. I told them you would be coming out shortly. Happy wedding day, Bella. Bella let out a sound of pure despair, a high, thin, keening noise that made the guests shiver. The guards hauled her through the doors, her heels dragging on the carpet. My parents were next. As they were marched past Dion, my father stopped. He looked at his son-in-law. He looked at the man he had ignored for 5 years, the man he had deemed not good enough for his precious Bella. Dion, please, Gerald rasped. She is your wife. She made a mistake. Do not send her to jail. Dion straightened his tie. He looked my father up and down, taking in the expensive suit, the arrogance, the absolute failure of character. She is not my wife, Dion said. She is your daughter, and she learned how to steal from the best. You took $10,000 of stolen money, Gerald. You might want to save your breath for your own lawyer. You are going to need one when the forensic accountants are done with you. My mother began to sob loudly, hysterically, but no one moved to comfort her. The guests watched in stony silence. They watched the family who had thought they were royalty be evicted like common criminals. As the guards pushed them through the doors, my father turned back one last time. He looked down the long aisle at me. I stood at the altar in my Vera Wang gown, my hand in Grant's, my head high. Paige, he shouted, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. You are ungrateful. We gave you life. We made you who you are. I reached for the microphone one last time. My hand was steady. My heart was calm. And today, I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong, I am taking it back. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut with a final resounding boom. The sound vibrated through the floorboards. It was the sound of a book closing. It was the sound of a prison cell locking. It was the sound of freedom. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then from somewhere in the back, a single person started clapping. Then another. And then the entire room erupted. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar. It was a standing ovation, not for a performance, but for a victory. I looked at Grant. He was smiling at me. It was the proudest smile I had ever seen. Is it over? He asked softly. I looked at the closed doors. I thought about Bella facing the police. I thought about my parents facing their social exile. I thought about Dayon finally free. Yes, I said. It is over. Grant squeezed my hand. Then I think we have a wedding to finish. We turned back to the officiant, who looked stunned but delighted. He cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. Well, he said, a smile tugging at his lips. I believe we were at the part about better or worse. I think you have already covered the worse. Shall we get to the better? I looked at Grant. I looked at the future stretching out before us, unburdened by the weight of my past. I do, I said. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was choosing. The ceremony that followed was not the stiff, formal affair we had rehearsed. It was raw and real and filled with a joy that felt dangerous because we had fought so hard to keep it. When I said I do, my voice did not shake. When Grant kissed me, it felt like a seal on a contract written in fire. We walked back down the aisle, not to the polite clapping of guests, but to a roar of approval. We had not just gotten married. We had survived a coup. The reception was a blur of champagne and relief. Without the suffocating presence of my family, the room could finally breathe. People laughed louder. They danced harder. Dan sat at the head table, a place of honor Grant insisted on giving him. He looked lighter, years younger than he had when he walked into that restaurant 3 months ago. He toasted us with a glass of sparkling water, and for the first time I saw a future for him, that did not involve apologizing for his own existence. 2 days later, Grant and I were on a plane. Not just any plane, but the first-class cabin of the flight to Malé. We were going to the Maldives. We were taking the trip Bella had tried to steal, the trip she had bought with stolen money, the trip she had fantasized about while trying to destroy my life. The villa was suspended over water so clear it looked like glass. We spent our days swimming with sharks and our nights watching the stars from our private deck. It was paradise. It was the silence I had craved for 32 years. On the third morning, I was sitting on the edge of the plunge pool drinking coffee and watching the sunrise when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my bank app. I opened it. The screen was bright against the morning light. Deposit received, $2 million. It was done. The inheritance from my grandmother, the money my family had tried to claim, the money Bella had plotted to steal, was safe. It was sitting in an account with only my name on it. My grandmother had known. She had known they would try to take it, and she had made sure they never could. I scrolled down. There was an email from my lawyer attached to the notification. It was a status report on the fallout back home. I read it with a detached curiosity, like reading about a storm in a country I no longer lived in. Bella's life had imploded with spectacular efficiency. The video of her meltdown at the wedding had gone viral. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation. It had millions of views. She was now known globally as the bride from hell. She had been fired from her lifestyle consulting gig because no brand wanted to be associated with a woman who tried to seduce her brother-in-law. The financial ruin was absolute. Dion had followed through on everything. He had frozen the accounts. He had served her with the divorce papers. She was now solely responsible for the $75,000 of credit card debt she had racked up, plus the legal fees Dion was suing her for. She had been evicted from their home. The lawyer's note said she was currently staying in a motel on the outskirts of town, working shifts at a diner to pay for a lawyer who had already told her she was going to lose. My parents had not fared much better. The social circle they prized above all else had closed its ranks against them. In their world, reputation was currency, and theirs was bankrupt. They had been asked to resign from the country club board. Their friends had stopped calling. My father's business partners were distancing themselves quietly, withdrawing contracts to avoid the stench of scandal. They were selling the house. The big Victorian house in Beacon Hill where I had grown up feeling like a guest was on the market. They needed the money to pay off the debts they had incurred trying to keep up appearances, and to help Bella, who was now a financial black hole. I put the phone down on the teak table. I looked out at the ocean. I thought about feeling sorry for them. I searched inside myself for that familiar pang of guilt, the old instinct to fix it, to write a check to smooth it over. I found nothing. There was only peace. The silence in my head where their voices used to be was beautiful. Grant walked out onto the deck. He was wearing swim trunks and a smile that reached his eyes. He saw the phone on the table and the look on my face. "Everything okay?" he asked, dropping a kiss on my shoulder. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had bugged his own apartment to save me. I looked at the man who had stood up to my entire family without blinking. "Everything is perfect," I said. My phone buzzed again. One last message. It was from a number I had blocked, but my carrier delivered it to a spam folder I sometimes checked. It was from my mother. "Paige, please call us. We are losing the house. Bella is in trouble. We are family. You can't do this." I looked at the words. Family. They still used that word like a weapon. They still thought it was a magic spell that could erase a lifetime of abuse. They did not understand that they had broken the spell themselves. I did not reply. I did not feel anger. I simply pressed the delete button. Then I went into the settings and changed my number. I picked up the phone one last time. I looked at the bank balance, $2 million. I looked at the photo of me and Grant from the wedding. We looked invincible. I stood up and walked to the edge of the deck. Below me, the Indian Ocean churned turquoise and deep. "You ready to swim?" Grant asked. I turned to him. I smiled. I am ready for everything, I said. I left the phone on the table. It was just a device now. It was no longer a leash. My family was thousands of miles away, living in the wreckage they had created. I was here in the sun with the love of my life and a future that belonged entirely to me. I dove into the water. The shock of the cold was exhilarating. I surfaced, taking a deep breath of clean salt air. I watched Grant dive in after me. We swam out toward the horizon, leaving the shore behind. I did not look back. I did not need to. The past was dead. And for the first time in 32 years, I was finally alive. The most profound lesson from Paige's harrowing journey is that family is defined by behavior, not biology. For years, Paige allowed her parents and sister to manipulate, abuse, and exploit her under the guise of familial obligation. She was conditioned to believe that keeping the peace meant swallowing her pain, and that love required endless sacrifice without reciprocity. The story vividly illustrates that toxic family systems rely on the silence and compliance of the victim to survive. However, the turning point wasn't just the public exposure, it was the meticulous preparation that preceded it. Paige learned that in the face of gaslighting and pathological lying, truth is the only weapon that matters. By gathering evidence, the receipts, she didn't just defend herself, she reclaimed her reality. The story teaches us that standing up for oneself isn't an act of cruelty but an act of necessary justice. It highlights that taking the high road doesn't mean allowing people to run you over. Sometimes the high road involves holding people accountable for their actions to prevent them from harming you again. Furthermore, the contrast between Grant's unwavering support and the biological family's betrayal serves as a powerful reminder that we have the agency to choose our tribe. Real love protects, honors, and validates. It does not blackmail or sabotage. Paige's victory wasn't just about the money or the wedding. It was about breaking a generational cycle of abuse and realizing that her worth was not negotiable. Walking away from the people who raised you can be the most painful decision of your life. But as Paige discovered, it is often the only path to true freedom and peace. If you have ever had to cut off a toxic family member to save your own sanity, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding the strength to fight back.